This is the page activity code behind. We've already started it with getting the constructor ready so that we could finish off on the previous page person, which relied on the capacity to have this constructor here that allowed a person to be passed into this particular module from the other module. Interesting how it's done. It's handed over from one module to another, and you can hand over just about anything. You could hand over an array, you could hand over a single variable of a single type, and in this case we are handling a person, so we hand that over to this particular part of the code. Right, what we're going to do now is we're going to start to get our code together for everything else that we need. So what we're going to do is, as usual, I'm going to create the module header, and I'll just fill that in. You can see here that I've said that what the purpose of this is to process activities, and this is the real scope and focus of the application, because we were just gathering data in page person, and in page summary we will just show data, but here is where all the processing takes place. And because of this, this is by far the biggest of the modules in terms of its complexity. And we have to make sure that you fully understand this one, and as I said to you before, what I'm actually going to do for you in this one is I'm going to supply you with the completed code, but you're not getting that until the final module video is published. For that, it'll be published with the final video. We'd like to sort of email it to people rather than letting them have it just up front, but there you go. I can't stop doing what we're doing. Right, so I'm going to paste in the very first bit of the code. And the first bit of the code is going to fix those red lines that we see before us, because we're going to put in some objects that we need to use as handler objects when we're creating our code and working with the things that we do to process it. So there we go, and you can see immediately the person underline has disappeared because the person is here. Yeah, so it now knows what it was talking about. So that's the first of it, and let's just go through those. There's lots and lots of variables. I'm going to leave you to read them and you can see what they are. There's some strings, static strings, ints, bools, all sorts of things. So those static strings are going to be kept in memory, so they're going to be available to us all the time. There are some lists of activities, lists of strings, all sorts of things. There's a person object there, there's a summary object there, and then there's an int. Oh gosh, what a variety, what a veritable cornucopia of richness. So those are the variables that are going to be used during the rest of the code that we create in this particular module. Now, by the very sight of this and the number of things that we've created, you will realize that this is a big module. This is going to be by far the biggest of all of the code sets that you have to produce, and I'm going to see how long it takes me to do the videos. But given the fact that I'm going to give you the code, maybe I don't have to talk through everything in as much detail as I normally would do, and I'll be able to perhaps just pass it to you as a kind of a completed object. So let's move on to the next thing that we're going to do. Is we have two constructors. We could have managed fine with just one, because I'm going to, we've created this constructor and person passed, but what I wanted to do was to leave the other constructor, which is here, in place. Because what is possible in many cases is you provide two constructors, and these are actually polymorphic, because they say the name is exactly the same, but they behave differently because we ask them with different. This one has a parameter and that one doesn't, but the interface is exactly the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy a lot of the code that we've got here in from into the other constructor as well. So hold on just 1 second, and I've pasted that in. Slightly different in their functionality, some of it's the same, but I've added some little bits and pieces between the two so that you can see that we've got some different things that are different in each of the constructors. So I wanted to also remind you about how we create our regions, because regions are a very good way of us collapsing code. So we surround the bit of code that we want to put into a single region with the highlighter, then hold Control KS Sorry, I missed the opportunity there. Control KS, and we want to go down to Visual C, Tab, Region, Tab, and we can now call that region 0203 constructors. So that's good. So it keeps things less busy on the page. So we can now go into here, and what I'm going to do is add another little bit of code, and this is what's going to happen when this particular code section, this page, is loaded. So what we want to do when we load the page is that we've got this person passed here, which we've populated into person. So now we want to just show the user that we've got the person. It's a confirmation message. So when the page is loaded, that's after it's been constructed by the constructors, after all of the data that it needs has been assembled and processed. If anything was passed through as a parameter, it can now load the page. So we've got void page loaded, and it says message box show person data received for, and then whatever the person is, the class, and we show the person name. That's just a little bit of good coding practice. So it allows people to understand that yes, we definitely have got the code and it is the code we wanted. Okay, I'm going to start to put in some methods that are module-wide methods that we're going to include in this particular module so that we can handle the data as we go. Now we've got this one somewhere else, but it's nice to have a local copy of this that we can use, and that's fraction of an hour, where we can get some minutes and work out what percentage, in like a decimal point percentage of an hour, that might be. So that's where we're going to load it locally as well. We've got it in one of the utility classes, but it's nice to have it locally. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make my region here. Select C#, tab, region tab. I'm going to call this 05 06 07 Please ignore this 5, 6 and 7. This is for me to track, to make sure I'm getting everything into the methods that that you need. So that's good. So I've got that one there. So what I would do is I would put some commentary on this one. And the reason why we have this method is that we have a rate which is to be calculated based on an hourly rate. That was in the data in the brief. It's an hourly rate, and if we're given minutes, we have to convert between the two. So here's another method. I'll put it above here, doesn't matter where it goes. So this just turns a list. Okay, so we're going to get a list of levels. Now our levels are defined as one of the variables up the top. So we're going to get a list of levels, and that's just a simple method that we're going to use later on. Might as well put this one up here as well. So I'm going to get a list of machines. Because remember, we need machines and levels in the interface because we can choose between the level and the machine, and each machine has 3 levels and so forth. So we need to get lists of these so that we can handle them effectively in our code.